Taking this old tile backsplash off in the kitchen and putting some under cabinet lighting in, hardwired on a switch. So getting all this stuff out of here, I'm going to use it's a vibrating saw here, and cut the grout. And if there's caulking, get the caulking off of there so I can get to the drywall. You do this at a slight little angle there. If you're using one of these tools, you don't want to scrape up your cabinets or countertops. These old Amish cabinets had a piece of molding on the back. Most cabinets aren't going to have that, but then I won't have to cut that up there. Cut the grout out. Here where the stove hood fan is, that last row goes up under there, so I'm going to cut the joint below it. The whole idea is to get to the drywall behind the grout and the tile. So I'll keep going around the kitchen, get the molding off, so I can get to the edge up under there in the countertop. Just keep going around and pull the moldings off and get the grout trimmed out of there with this vibrating saw. Like I said, you got to be really careful. I'm going to put this thing in a little angle there to get in there to get the grout out of the way so I can get in to cut the drywall. Same thing on the top. Make sure all the moldings are off and stuff. So it might be a good idea to find the studs. Usually they'll be running next to your outlets, one side or the other. Once you find one, you should be able to measure off 16s and find the rest of your studs. That way when you're cutting and you feel something hard, you'll know what it is. Like I said, you can see typically they're going to line up next to your device boxes there. Just as an added safety thing, you don't want to be chopping on a pipe or something if you get your blade in there too deep or whatever. So just be careful and take your time. I use a Sawzall with a long blade to get in there. I don't have to worry about these countertops because they are getting replaced eventually. I like to keep the mess on top of the counter here rather than down inside all these cabinets. So I took a Sawzall and just barely poked the blade through the wall, cut the drywall, and then get the outlets loose and tipped in a little bit. Get the power shut off. And that way when you pull this drywall and tile off of there, it'll slide over those outlets and there won't be anything, holding it there. Between the two studs here, I got a hollow spot, I'm assuming. So I'm going to get started right there in that hollow spot. I busted a hole, and you can see where I cut the top. It's nice and straight, and on the bottom, nice and straight. So when I go to patch the drywall back in, I got something nice to go to. It's not all busted up. Now I get this hole. I could see what's holding the drywall on. Sometimes it's screws, sometimes it's glue, sometimes it's both. Should come off in pretty good chunks. This one's probably going to be fighting me a little bit, but it's got to come off. So I did find nails and glue, so it didn't come off without a fight, but you got to get it off of there. So you can see the top edge and the bottom, it's pretty clean. In the middle, you can see where there's glue, nails, holding chunks of that drywall on there. So get all that cleaned off. I'll clean off as much of the glue as I can and get the nails out and get all those little scraps off of there. Get the bottom and top where it broke. Get that trimmed off and cleaned up so I can get my wires in and get the drywall patch going. You can see here after I got it cleaned up how nice and straight those are. I'll need a couple of nailer blocks, but no biggie. And it's going to give me room to get my wires in and stuff. I got 4 fixtures, one there, one there, one there, and one on the other side of the sink. LED fixtures. So after I get the wires in, I can patch this thing. I'm probably going to have to run a new circuit for these wires. It's not a big deal. I'm going to put the switch for the lights right next to that GFCI. I'm going to have to redo that box. So I got a new construction box there and a switch, a dimmer switch. So with the power shut off, take this GFCI all apart. and put this duplex box in here so I can get my switch in there. And then I'll run my wires. I get a dimmer switch, 15 amp. Like I said, all these wires on these outlets are 20 amp, and I need a smaller wire for the fixtures. So I'm just going to run a new circuit. You might not need to do that, but after I get the wire in there, you get these little nailer plates. They're made to protect pipes and wires and stuff if they're kind of shallow in the wall. So probably not going to have to worry about anything getting nailed down here where the backsplash is going to go eventually, but just extra protection for those wires. We'll cover those everywhere that we need to. So after I got the wires run for the lights and the switch and all that, got my drywall patch started, and you can see where they're having those straight edges. It's going to help a lot. A little bit of taping around where the stove was, in the cabinets, not so, and behind the stove, not so much on the countertops because it's getting new countertops and a 4-inch backsplash. Won't have to worry about that. But then I can put these moldings back in that came off to cover that seam on the top. Like I said, you might not have that. You might have to tape the top edge too, but this kind of worked out in my favor. So get the light fixtures in, get my trim on, get it all patched up, like you see here. I got it all patched up and a couple coats of paint on it, and waiting on countertops. Countertops were like 4 weeks out, so they opted to go ahead and just get this part done. Like I said, I didn't have to be careful around the countertops themselves because they're going to come out eventually. So I get the lights on a dimmer, and it looks real nice. It's a lot better than what they had. It was pretty dark under there. So those fixtures are a good option. There's lots of light coming off them. They're LED. Probably won't have to ever change the bulbs or anything, hopefully. So yeah, like I said, waiting on countertops, and when those come in, we'll take a picture at the end here. So, and then we'll work on getting a floor in. So their new quartz got put in, and everything looks great, and they're happy. So that helps.